spectrum survival on Survival Talk Radio. Join us for Dad Talks, political debates, and pro-gun conversation. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com. Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival. You can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. You're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan-Shrigley. Are you worried about the war in Ukraine? Do you have fears that this could bleed into a World War III scenario? Well, let me put your mind at ease. Whatever happens, it's God's will, but you can still be prepared, and we're going to talk about that in great length. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about the Second Amendment, and we're going to focus on that topic only. And it's going to be impactful because right before your eyes, for the last 8.5 days, you have seen what being armed as a civilian population can do, and why it's so important that we maintain our Second Amendment right to bear arms. And there's so many reasons why that right was given to us, and so many reasons why they want to take it away. And we're going to dig deep into that topic of conversation today. And I look forward to this. It's going to be fun. So basically, the NRA was under attack by the state of New York. And it was I believe the Attorney General of New York was trying to dissolve the NRA, and the NRA won their lawsuit, and that individual can no longer dissolve the NRA. But it was trying to, because they really, the Democrats, these are just the Democrats, really want to take away your right to bear arms, and they use a manipulation tactic, a disguise or a guise or whatever, propaganda or whatever, is they are trying to use crime as their reason to take away your Second Amendment right. But what happens when they succeed? What will happen if they succeed at taking away your right to bear arms? And they use a lot of manipulation. Even Joe Biden used manipulation in his State of the Union address. He mentioned, since I brought his name up, he mentioned that deer don't wear Kevlar vests. Why do you need a high-powered rifle or assault rifle? Deer don't wear Kevlar vests. and he's right, and I'm surprised he knew that. Because it's true. I've never seen a deer wear a Kevlar vest. I have never seen one. But I have seen insurgents wear Kevlar vests. I have seen terrorists wear Kevlar vests. I've seen criminals wear Kevlar vests. Tyrants wear Kevlar vests. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. It's not for deer hunting, fool. Tell Joe Biden, if you're a supporter of him and you have access to him, that deer don't wear Kevlar vests. He's right. But tyrants do. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. Our Second Amendment by our founding fathers knew that an armed society would be a safer society, because they knew that we just finished fighting for our freedoms against the British, and we won our freedom. And to maintain that freedom, we would have to have the ability to take up arms again if it was ever threatened that we could lose our freedoms to tyranny or to an invading military. Now, you know, they say that it's really hard for an invading army to come to the United States. And in the modern day, that is true. But back in the old days, they used to hop on a boat and show up. So it's not impossible, people. It's not impossible. You know, if they detonate a electromagnetic pulse, they detonate a nuclear bomb, they can wipe out our power grids with that, shut down our electrical devices, and basically, at least for a temporary time span, not sure how temporary or how long, short term or whatever, but they could definitely put us back in the frontier days, the Stone Age. So, you know, why do Democrats really want to take away your guns? It's not because deer don't wear Kevlar vests. We don't have our Second Amendment for going hunting for fowl or deer or bear or whatever elk or whatever it is that you go hunting for if you're a hunter. You know, I believe in, if we're going to go hunting, we need to kill what we're going to use and eat. But I don't believe, personally, myself, in trophy killing at all. You know, if you're not going to use that animal, eat it, then don't go kill it and take its life away just so you can look cool posing in a poster and put a stuffed taxidermy animal in your house. You know, it's kind of selfish, in my opinion. You know, but some of you might be really avid hunters, and that's what you're into, and you know, I understand that. I'm just speaking for myself, pretty much. This is not. I mean, I'm a survival guy. I'm an outdoor guy. I've had to kill animals, and I've gone hunting before, but it was always for consumption, and you know, putting meat in the deep freezer. But it never took more than we needed, and it wasn't to put a trophy head on the wall. It was always for food, or to eat, whatever, small game, large game, whatever. But yeah, I grew up hunting. I just, it was always for necessity. Especially when I was growing up, you know, I was kind of poor. My mom was a beautician, cosmetologist, cut hair, did nails and stuff like that. So she wasn't raking in fist over fist dollars. She was doing the best she could to, you know, be a single mom and provide. But through my mom, she had friends that were into hunting, and she let me go out with them. And then she ended up getting married to a guy that was really into nature. And then she, you know, introduced me to another friend of hers who was always hunting. and he took me out hunting. My dad was more the fisher type guy. He was into fishing, not really hunting. So he did teach me how to go fishing and stuff growing up. So, but through a collection of experiences growing up in my childhood, I was able to get a very well-rounded education. Plus, my dad was a scoutmaster. But the hunting, the stalking, all that stuff, using traps and stuff, that all came from my mom's side through either her husband, boyfriends, or just family friends. But I did learn a lot, and I enjoyed myself growing up, especially outdoors. So, hunting, that's not why we have the Second Amendment. Self-defense fits the criteria of why we have the Second Amendment quite well. We have the right to defend ourselves in our person, place, and home, and to be secure, and to do so, we have the Second Amendment so that we can own firearms, because the criminal element has firearms. So, we talk about escalations of force. You at least have to have the ability to match the force that you're threatened with in order to have self-defense. So if the criminal has a handgun, well then the only way you're going to be able to defend yourself is if you also have one. And, and there's extremist leftists out there. I just saw one on TikTok talking about, we don't need the Second Amendment. That's why we have police. That's their job to protect us, not our job. Well, the same guy's probably that guy that said that is probably the same guy that was a couple months ago just talking about defunding the police. And where does that leave you when there's not enough police to respond to your calls? It leaves you on your own to fend for yourself. So, so I couldn't help myself. I had to clown back on him on his live feed. And he was getting no love on TikTok he was pretty much forced to get off TikTok, at least for his live feed. I'm not sure if he got his account off TikTok, but they're out there, and he really believed what he said, or so he thinks he does. But the police aren't always there. We like them to be, but when they're being attacked and defunded by politicians, it makes it hard for them to be there. Do I see corrupt cops? Yes, I see them a lot. I do watch the auditor channels, the audit kind of stuff. Sometimes I think they are inciting issues with law enforcement, but then sometimes I see legitimate stuff too. So I see both sides. Would I go out of my way to harass a bunch of cops? Absolutely not. I work in the industry of private security, and we rely on law enforcement to function if we are ever in a situation where we need to arrest someone. We need someone to come and take that arrest to jail for us and take our police report so we can press charges and prosecute. But, as a security consultant for a few firms, and I also work with my best friend with his company, and on the clock sometimes. Lately I've been working with him for the last 3 weeks. He needs the help, and I'm available. So, and it's not like I work for free. But my main function with him is really supposed to be new client marketing. But sometimes, he needs me in the field. And lately he's needed me more in the field to help out with current clients. So that's what I've been doing there. But his company is both armed and unarmed. So, and it offers both standing post and patrol. And maybe you heard the advertisement for PPA security. I was with a company up until I came over to my friend's company. But I resigned from that company to come over to this company. This company I think is a better fit. One, it's one of my best friends. I have a couple of best friends, but my best friend owns it, and I like the way he operates his company. has a lot more professional feel to it. And I think he has the ability to satisfy his clients a lot better. It's just more organized, it's more professional, and that's one of the other reasons why I resigned from the other company I was at and came over here. So, but I do offer consulting, security consulting for clients and security companies, and with the focus of bringing new clients to the security companies and matching security companies with clients that are looking, that need it. So if you're in that spectrum, send me an email at daniel@daniel-shrigley.com, and I'll respond to you. And just let me know in the subject of what it's pertaining to, and we'll respond, and then we can get on the phone call. Outside of that, and I need to clarify one thing. I focus my efforts here in California for that. I've never done security outside of the state unless it was military related. So if you're in California as a security company owner, let me know. If you're a business owner or have property and you're thinking about hiring armed or unarmed, let me know. And I can get you married to a good contract between the two parties involved with a security company that will most likely make you happy, or get you, or it can help you get clients. But my fees are between $2,000 per contract to $5,000. Just depends on the contract revenue amount for the security company. Obviously, I don't charge the client the money. I charge the security company the money, and the security company must pay me on the first billing invoice, and it will be drawn up in a contract before anything is given. So that's on the upfront. And back to the Second Amendment. So Second Amendment, as I've defined, is not for hunting. It is so you can stand up to a tyrannical leader, tyrannical government. And when I say a tyrannical leader, I mean, one, the Second Amendment is there so you can protect the Second Amendment. It's also there so you can protect all your rights. But it is there so that if the United States government becomes communist, you can rise up against that and keep it free and keep it a republic instead of a socialist communist state that some politicians are actually striving for. And that's dangerous. And now what they do is the Democrats like to use public mass shootings, which are very sad, crime rates and all that stuff, to take away your firearms, but yet they're willing to defund the police. Now, only recently did Joe Biden in his State of Union address say we need to fund the police, not defund the police. But he's saying that because he knows midterms are coming up and he's trying to get swing voters. But before that, he was saying the opposite. He was saying defund the police. And his whole party is saying defund the police. Especially the squad of the Democrats, the squad, the socialists, the extremist leftists, progressives. They've been really focused on trying to defund the police. Who's going to respond to a 911 call if there's not enough cops available? Duh. You know what I mean? So, and if they defund the police and they take away your firearms, then you're just open season for criminals. They can do whatever. Who will take charge? The criminal element will take charge. They'll be in charge because they're the ones with the guns. Whoever has the guns wins. All right? And so if they want to defund the police and minimize them or dissolve them, and then they take away your guns, and then organized crime starts popping up. All right? You want to go back to Chicago days? All right? Organized crime. Have a mafia boss telling you what to do, like the cartel, you know, but it'll be in America instead of Mexico or Colombia. No, I don't think we want that. Okay. But the Second Amendment exists so that way we can stand up against tyranny, and we can also stand up against an invasive force or an invading military. We can rise up as a population. And there's no better perfect example of that than Ukraine right now, with the Ukraine citizens standing up. Now, men between the ages, I think, of 18 and 60 are not permitted to, become refugees and flee the nation of Ukraine. They must stay and fight. But their wives and children can go, and, they can flee. And so the men are escorting their families through the country so that they can go to the neighboring country that's not involved in the conflict. But then those men must return and take up arms and fight. And a lot of men have, and a lot of women have. Miss Ukraine has taken up arms, and she's also joined the fight. The ex-president of Ukraine has joined the fight, and then the current president of Ukraine has been in the fight. And, that's patriotism. And now, they might not have the Constitution that we have, where they, have a Second Amendment like we do. But they are doing pretty much what we would do, but we don't need to worry about being issued weapons from our own government like they have. We possess weapons. And part of the Second Amendment of us being armed as a society is the politicians and the government know that we're armed. And so they do not want us to take up arms. They want to keep us at the level of peacefully protesting. So the definition to a Republican of peaceful protest is you're out there peacefully protesting, much like the Canadian truckers did. That was peacefully protesting. They weren't burning down businesses. They weren't taking over police departments. But the definition of a Democrat's peaceful protest is setting businesses on fire, looting, attacking people in the streets, taking over police departments, setting up autonomous zones, basically taking over blocks of city-owned property or county-owned property that doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the taxpayer. But just taking it over, and that's how they had Chaz. That was, I think, in Seattle or Portland or something like that. But you've seen it, and then they had all those riots. But that's peaceful protesting if you ask a Democrat. But in reality, we know the truth. That's rioting, all right? And that was an insurrection. And that was more of an insurrection than the January 6th so-called insurrection. Should the Trump supporters went into the Capitol building? Absolutely not. Were they all Trump supporters? Absolutely not. Some were embedded Antifa members, organized and sent there by some unbeknownst politicians. But they were sent there to agitate. And they did exactly what they were supposed to do. And so they blended in with the Trump supporter, put on Trump garb, and went in there and made the situation worse. But they said that's an insurrection. Okay, that was one day. But Democrats are more guilty of insurrection than any Republican or even the protesters, insurrectionists, whatever you want to call them, of January 6th at the Capitol building. Because the Democrats have been supporting Antifa and BLM, who were basically conducting criminal activities, battling police and riot teams, and you saw it all over the news. But they don't talk about it, because if they don't talk about it, it didn't happen. But, I mean, we all watched the news and saw it unfolding before our eyes. And then those same Democrats, like Kamala Harris and her cronies, and Nancy Pelosi and her cronies, were out there bailing out Antifa members from jail, bailing them out so they can go right back out in the street and battle the police again. So whenever a Democrat tells you they support the police, they're lying. They don't support the police. They support their political narrative. So why do the Democrats want to take your guns away? Because if you're not armed, you're controllable. If you're not armed, then you can't rise up and fight back. And then if you're not armed, then the only people that are armed will be the people that are loyal to them. So what they will do is they'll stop letting police officers that don't align with them become police officers. So that way every police officer is aligned with them and that will happen at the hiring process. And then the ones that aren't aligned with them, they'll boot them out of the force, get rid of them out of law enforcement. They'll fail them on a psych exam or whatever. They'll politically not align them, and they'll be cancel cultured. And so the only ones that are allowed to get into law enforcement will be the ones that will be loyal to them. And then that way, over a period of time, once society is disarmed, then they can make the United States a one-party rule nation across the board and push out any of the proponents of anybody that's their opposition. And that will be their total goal. And that way, you'll only have a Democrat as president, or Congress, or the House, or holding state offices, or governor, or whatever. It'll always be a liberal. It'll never be conservative. That way, only one side is taken care of, and you have to conform. So they can't do that if society is armed. It's like a hostile takeover from within the United States by our own people that have a different ideology. And what threatens their ability to do that is that Second Amendment. So Joe Biden said deer don't wear bulletproof vests and Kevlar vests. Yeah, but the Second Amendment's not for hunting. It's for tyranny. So you need to always defend the Second Amendment, because when you defend the Second Amendment, you are also defending every other amendment, your freedom of speech. You watched our freedom of speech, how that has gone in the last couple of years. It hasn't been directly attacked by the government, because that would be illegal. So the government uses their lobbyists, their pawns, corporate America, their loyalists that own social media companies to limit your speech. But I will remind you, your freedom of speech isn't limited to a Facebook post. Your freedom of speech is not limited to a Twitter post. Your freedom of speech does not begin and stop at social media. That's a manipulation. Your freedom of speech is when you protest outside in front of the public and you capture the media attention. All right. Now, the social media aspect of it is you can get your attention faster by posting it yourselves. All right. Where everybody's kind of becomes their own independent journalist. It's freedom of the press. It's your First Amendment right to film out in public, as long as there's no expectation of privacy, as long as it's in public view. So you have the right to film in public. And you'll see, if you watch a lot of the audit shows on YouTube, where they'll, or those channels, where police hate it when they see people filming, or they'll be filming and they'll be staying on a public roadway, on a public sidewalk, not on private property, but they'll be filming in the direction of a facility, and those people will call the police because they don't want to be filmed. And then the police come over and show me your ID, and then they're like, what crime have I committed, or what crime do you suspect me of, or what crime do you have the ability to articulate that you're accusing me of? Because not all states have a law that requires you, upon request by a law enforcement officer, to render identification unless you are suspected of a crime, have committed a crime, or are about to commit a crime, and that police officer has reasonable suspicion or probable cause, or he can articulate or she can articulate that you are breaking the law or were about to or did. And so they can't just stop anybody at random and demand ID. So some states have a law that the only time a police officer can demand ID is if you broke the law, or if you get pulled over because you were driving and you committed a traffic infraction and they need your ID to give you a citation. But outside of that, if they just pull you over and you ask the police officer, am I detained or under arrest? And they said, no, you're not detained or under arrest, but can I get ID? And they're like, well, if I'm not detained or under arrest and you don't suspect me of a crime, then I'm not going to help you investigate. I'm going to plead the fifth and remain silent. I'm not going to identify myself. I'm not going to help your investigation. So if you got to watch those audit shows, and remember, when you watch them, it's not legal advice. What might happen in one state might not be legal in your state, could get you hemmed up. So be really thorough on your knowledge before you watch these kind of videos, thinking that scenario applies everywhere. It doesn't. It can get you in trouble, especially if it doesn't apply in your area. But it goes back to the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is protected by the Constitution. But the Second Amendment is what protects us with all our other amendments. We have the right to stand up and defend our rights and our freedoms, our independence, our republic, our democracy. So it's real important that to defend the Second Amendment at all costs, because once that goes, everything else is going to go. Anybody that's ever been censored by social media platforms like Facebook or Meta or Instagram, which is owned by Meta or Facebook, and Twitter, I've been victimized by them, violating my freedom of speech because I didn't align with their political beliefs or values, so they deleted my account. That's okay. I could probably take them to court and sue them, but that would cost a lot of money. But if you have that money and you want to sue them, you might be that one person that wins in court and creates case law. And that case law could be what protects everybody else, especially if it's in federal court. So I'm waiting to see if someone that has that kind of money or a law firm that's really truly willing to take those social media giants to court and take them to federal court. And I hope if they do, they win and they create a new case law, so that way we don't continue to have our rights violated and be silenced. Because, our right to free speech is the right to express your political belief or opinion or whatever it is. It's your right to speech. It's your right to expression. And, when I see somebody that's posting stuff that I don't like, I just block them. I don't go out of my way to report them, unless they're doing promoting some crime, and they need to be reported, but no, just because I don't believe with someone, I don't align with them politically, doesn't mean that I'm going to report every post they make and try to attract a fellow liberal that works at the Facebook headquarters to identify their account and violate their freedom of speech because they're, politically against that person, and that's what they've been doing. So the fact checkers, they're not always correct. What they're correct about is they'll say, like, if you post something, they'll say, due to violation of community standards, because this goes against our community standards, blah, blah, blah. But, are there community standards really posted? And does it pertain specifically to that topic? And so, but their fail-safe is it's their company, their platform. They can decide who is a user and who's not a user. And so you got to remember that. You're taking your business to them. And if you don't like the way they conduct their business or the services they offer, you can always take your business elsewhere. You're not forced to have a Facebook account. And that's why I was trying to say earlier in this discussion or conversation was that, your freedom of speech isn't dependent upon your social media accounts. It helps. It's a big part. But your freedom of speech really comes in the form of your being able to write a letter and send it through the postal system to your representatives, rather the ones you support or the ones you don't support. Or your freedom of speech is the ability to protest, get your voice heard, and to boycott or promote or endorse or support, whatever direction you want to go with it. But your freedom of speech must be protected. And the government is in the pocket, especially the Democrats, with these giants that have all these social media accounts, companies, and they will limit your freedom of speech if you don't coincide with their narrative or their political agenda or their political viewpoints. If you support the other party, so if you're a Republican, then they say you're in their philosophy. You don't have freedom of speech. Only the people that are in their party or that align with their political beliefs can speak, because you're saying things they want to hear, but they want to cancel you out. It's cancel culture. Who's been a victim of cancel culture? Have you been a victim of cancel culture by these tech giants? I know I have. I've had accounts deleted. I've had thousands of followers on it. I had to start over again. All right. But I realized, it's all superficial, The Second Amendment is what allows you to go to church or not go to church. But the Second Amendment protects that choice. The Second Amendment protects you. And once you give that up, you don't have the ability to defend your home, your house, your car, or your place of business, or your person. And, unless everybody becomes a martial arts expert, we end up like, one of those countries in China or Asia or, Thailand or wherever, where everybody knows how to fight, but not everybody here does. A lot of people are out of shape. So, but, it's, you have to realize that there's an agenda, and that agenda is to disarm not just you, but everyone around you and all of society. And why? It's not to lower crime and stop people from going postal, people from going into schools and shooting. That's just the guys. That's on the stage. But behind the curtain, it's so that way they, as a political party, can dominate and have more power without the fear of an uprising. All right? It's tyrannical. When you see a politician talking about taking all your guns away, like that O'Rourke guy running for Texas governor, well, while he was running on the trail to become president, when he's trying so hard to get elected, but that O'Rourke guy, he was talking about in his presidential campaign, he's going to disarm everybody. He's going to take all guns away. He doesn't care about the Second Amendment. We're going to abolish the Second Amendment. All right? Well, that's a politician that when he swears his oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic, and then turn around the very next day after swearing that oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic, and to carry out the duties of his office, his elected office, blah, 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 then the very next day turn around and go violate that oath. So my question is this: every politician that has taken the oath to be in the position they are, they had to swear in, even the president has to swear in, it's called an inauguration. They all swear to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States against enemies and foreign and domestic. And then some of them, not all of them, but some of them, like Democrats, immediately turn right around the next day or the next week or the next month and then go attack your freedom of speech. Go attack your Second Amendment right. There should be a penalty for people that do that when they violate the oath. The problem is we have an oath that people have to take to be sworn in. It's called sworn. Police officers are sworn. The reason why it's called sworn is because they've sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state that they are sworn in at, whatever state that is, against enemies, foreign and domestic, and to carry out the duties of their position that they're being appointed to. All right? So there's a difference between an election and an appointment. But they still take the oath. All right? Even soldiers, military, regardless of branch, must all take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. And then you'll see the politicians, the elected ones, will turn around and go violate that right away. Even some that are appointed will turn around and go violate that right away. All right? And there needs to be a punishment for violating that oath. Otherwise, what's the point in taking oath? It's just a formality, a tradition. Okay? Then why is it a requirement to do that in order to take office? So why is it so important to take the oath if it's not going to be enforced, if it's violated? And that's where we need to change our legislation. We need to have politicians that are oath keepers push a bill that mandatorily enforces by law that when someone that is under an oath of enlistment, an oath of commission, an oath of appointment, or an oath of elected office, a person that goes and violates that oath by turning around and attacking the very thing that they say they're going to defend, that becomes a felony. And it comes with a very stiff prison sentence in federal penitentiary. Or in some cases where it could be a state charge and a federal charge. Because some people are swearing into an oath to defend, like California. Say it's a cop in California, like a sheriff. He's elected. So he swears to defend the Constitution of California and the United States because he's an elected sheriff, right? So if he goes and turns around and violates his oath, well, he's violated his federal oath and his state oath. So that's a federal crime and a state crime. But right now it seems it's not a crime, at least not one being enforced. Well, we need to have the legislators adopt a bill that enforces that gets enforced. All right? And we need to write our representatives and make sure that they see that it's pointed out to them and that they hear it and that they can go make a change. So that way people like Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, I mean, he was at the State of the Union address talking about, gun control. Gun control is a violation of the Second Amendment. We already have gun control. All right, they just want to keep adding more and more and more and more to the point where you can't even buy ammo. Come to California and try to buy ammo. You have to, a box of ammo, you have to have a background check, and you have to wait 10 days to pick it up. It's ridiculous. Okay? And it's a violation of the Constitution of the United States. That is an unlawful law. And it needs to be overturned. All right? Because it's unlawful. It's violating your Second Amendment. Making you have to pass a background check just to buy ammo. If the founding fathers were alive today, what things do you think they would see just in the government alone that would make them pissed off? It would be the attack on the Second Amendment, the attack on your First Amendment. It would be an attack on you economically too. Your quality of life and economic cost of living. They would be pissed. They would accuse the current establishment of betraying the people. And they would ask, why haven't the people risen up already? Paying $5 a gallon for gas. Now, granted, in the days that the Constitution was written, we didn't have gasoline. And granted that the United States is an experiment. Our government is an experiment, which means it's an ever-revolving body of government that's supposed to learn and cater to the needs of the society as it grows in time. So that is true. But when our government is making it harder on us to survive, where we have thousands upon thousands of people in San Francisco that are living on the streets, homeless, all throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, all right? There's tens of thousands, probably 100 to 200,000 homeless people in California. I mean, there's encampments on the side of the freeways. There's encampments downtown. I mean, it's in abundance. All right. A lot of the homeless issue is individual choices, but the other half of it is not. It's economic struggle. These people could go get a job. They can make 15, 17 bucks an hour, because that's, I think, the minimum wage now, at least in California. They can get a job at McDonald's making 17 bucks an hour. But what does that $17 an hour get them for a place to live? It doesn't get them anywhere. You can work full time at $17 an hour, and you won't be able to afford a place to live, because a one-bedroom apartment's going for $2,000 a month. All right? So $2,000 a month at $17 an hour, that's about 480 bucks, maybe 450 bucks every week that you make. That's not enough. All right? How are you going to buy? Say you spent every penny you made to get a place to live. How are you going to pay the electric bill? How are you going to buy groceries? How are you going to get back and forth to work? How are you going to buy clothes? How are you going to do laundry? It leaves you no money to do everything else. It almost creates an environment where if you're single, it forces you to get into a relationship with someone just so you have two incomes. All right? Why do you think people live in their vans? They'll go buy a van and convert it into a hidden, like, you can see the outside of it and you can't really tell what it is. It just looks like a van. But inside it looks like a freaking luxury apartment. Like a stealth camper. Why do people do that? It's not because they really want to. It's because they're trying to make ends meet, and they still want to live nice, but they can't afford to pay a rent for $2,800, $3,000 a month. You know, they can't. So they try to find other ways. They get creative. They get crafty. All right. Your Second Amendment is supposed to protect us from that crap. But it's always under attack. And it's always going to be under attack until it's erased. Until it no longer exists. Until the world becomes a new world order. It's a one world government. And the Antichrist takes power. So, do you see the direction that everything goes? Not just in America, but around the world. Look at Australia. Look at the tyranny that occurred over COVID. The people were basically, the nation was put under house arrest. It was horrible. It was a horrible infringement on their freedoms, the way it was conducted and carried out. It was an utter betrayal. I don't even know if it's still going on over there. I haven't really been tracking it. It's been kind of removed from the media, probably intentionally, because it's probably still going on there. Because that government, once a government gets power, takes power, it doesn't like to release it. For example, California has backed off of its vaccine COVID mask wearing mandates. A little bit. They've laxed off of it. But why? Why was the State of the Union very few people? Only people we really see wearing masks at the State of the Union was Secret Service and just a small handful of staff at the State of the Union address in Congress. But everybody else was maskless. All right? Why all of a sudden they maskless? Because the midterms are coming up. That's why. What happens after the midterms? There'll be a new variant, and the politicians are probably, the Democrats, especially the red states, are going to be more, or not the red states, correction, the blue states. The Democrats are going to be more prone to reestablish certain mask rules and mandates. And then they're going to guilt you into it and tell you, it's okay, you've gone through it before, we're going to get through it this time, but there'll be a new variant, and it's going to spread, it's going to be a quick spreader, and they're going to want to lock things back up, and they're going to try to pass the buck off at first. They're going to say, we're just going to leave it up to individual property owners or business owners, and, in businesses, we'll leave it up to them if they want to enforce. And then they'll eventually, once they can throw up enough discussion points on the news, talk shows, opinion shows, all that stuff, then they'll start imposing it governmentally. Okay? So it'll just go back and forth because it's a cool new thing that they have to take power away and maintain power. Because once a government maintains power or obtains the power, it's really hard for them to want to give it up. But right now, there's a lot of careers on the line. And when you step back and you look at all the polls, Joe Biden's poll numbers are horrific. Kamala Harris's poll numbers are worse than Joe Biden's. They're not very well liked, not very well received. And for a president that's supposed to have the most votes in the United States history of any presidentially elected individual, he was voted for the most. Well, gosh, for a guy that had that much turnout without any parades across the nation, he sure is not popular. He's not popular because of his inflation. He's not popular because what has he done for America? What thing has he done to make this a fun place to live? He hasn't done anything. So I see a hare running by me. Looks like a jackrabbit. So he hasn't done anything but threaten to take away your Second Amendment, your right to bear arms. That he just threatened on the State of the Union address. He didn't address a lot of issues that affect Americans' day-to-day lives. He didn't address those. He spent most of his time using his scapegoat topic, which was Ukraine. You know, Ukraine is something that's been going on for 8 weeks. He's been president for 13 months. But he has very little accomplishments and really super low polls. So he didn't spend a lot of time talking about accomplishments because he doesn't have any. So he used Ukraine as his deflector mechanism, his fail-safe fallback. So he could spend more time talking about that. He mentioned Ukraine probably like 14 times. He mentioned China only 3 times. But he didn't mention anything about resolving the inflation crisis here. He didn't mention anything about dropping our gas prices for fuel by creating energy independence. He didn't mention anything about jobs creation. And so if he brags about creating jobs for any kind of period of time, remember all the jobs that his party made people lose. And so you can't really call that, high marks for creating jobs. All he's done is release some of the jobs that were already. You got to remember, how many people went on unemployment during COVID? All right. Now that COVID thing hit while President Trump was in office. And it was the Democrats in the blue states that really locked down their states fast. All right. And then they're the ones that decided who the Democrats were considered to be essential. And remember, they shut down gun stores, saying, well, you're not essential, you're a gun store. All right. But it determined the U.S. Supreme Court said it is essential. So, but that didn't make up for the losses that gun store owner took during that whole time. It just means he can open his doors up and hopefully he can still survive, but they would determine who's essential and who's not. If you worked at a restaurant, you're essential. If you're a truck driver, you're essential. If you're a nurse, you're essential. But if you work, but say you don't do those jobs and you work at a different job and your job's not essential, so your job gets to shut down. You're not essential. So they basically get to tell and control who's worthy of making an income or not. That's tyrannical. It will always be tyrannical. I know a lot of people are bought and sold the farm, and they're wearing masks, driving around their car when they're by themselves. And now I see a raccoon walking around. So I've seen a rabbit, a raccoon, and wild turkey while recording this show, walking around. I have a clear view out the window. I can see everything walking by. So it's pretty cool. I'm always seeing wildlife. My favorite place to record the show is in my car. Just in case you guys didn't know that. It's quiet. I don't have to worry about the TV. I don't have to worry about toilet flushing, so I like to come. I'll sit in my car, run the heater, have a conversation, record the show, and then I go back out. So I record the show from my cell phone. I've always recorded it from my cell phone for 10 years. And it's worked out quite well. So sometimes while I'm out sitting in the car, out in the parking lot, I can look out and see wild animals walking by at night that are nocturnal. So it's pretty cool. But getting back to the Second Amendment. So, if Democrats get their way and they confiscate the Second Amendment from us and they take our right to bear arms away, if they were ever to be successful at that, whose fault will that be? It will be the gun owners, the people that support the Second Amendment, which should be every free-loving American, it'll be your fault for allowing them to do that without rising up. So if they don't stop and they continue to persist with taking away the Second Amendment and doing firearms confiscations, they're not going to do it all at once because it'll be obvious they're trying to disarm society. They're going to do it incrementally until they get them all. And they're going to, semi-automatic pistols are bad. Everybody has to carry revolvers, 6-shooters. You're only allowed to carry 6 shooters now. California's already made where you can't have more than a 10-round magazine. But one day, they're going to make it to where it's by, California law will one day be you can't carry anything but a 6-shooter. Then eventually 6-shooters will be bad, and they'll be like, get rid of guns altogether. And then, a lot of them are already saying that, but, and eventually what they're going to do is they're going to outlaw, you're not allowed to carry a knife or own a knife, and if you get caught with a knife, it's a felony, unless you're going hunting, or you're on a boat, in international waters or something, But that's what happened to the United Kingdom. United Kingdom used to be armed, and then they confiscated their right to bear arms and confiscated their firearms. And then not long after that, then they banned knives. You're not allowed to own knives. So Bear Grylls, he's a famous celebrity survival guy from History Channel and Discovery Channel and NBC, and so he's had quite a few survival shows, and he rose to fame and around he was really popular around 2010 to 2014, I believe, where he had his Man vs. Wild show. It was his very first show. Then he got fired by Discovery Channel, and then eventually he went and did Staying Alive or some show. But he's ventured on to do more shows. But he came out with a survival knife called the Bear Grylls Survival Knife by Gerber. Well, his biggest fan base is in the United Kingdom, and the average European in the UK isn't even allowed to own his knife. And I would have the knife because I'm in America. I had a Bear Grylls knife. I gave it away as a gift to some little kid named Alec. He had a little YouTube channel called Alec Wilderland when he was like 11. And then he grew up, and I guess the channel's not as interesting now because he got older. You kind of grow up, and it's kind of hard to, change your ways as you grow, but still stay the same way people remember you. It happens a lot to child stars, so I think that's kind of what happened to his channel. He's gonna have to adapt and overcome and find a new way of presenting himself as who he is today. But sometimes you have to change your branding, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You have to escape your past. Otherwise, you can get typecasted. And I think he's kind of falling in that typecast zone. He needs to change his brand. He needs to go more serious, more adult, and try to escape that little kid show, because it really was a child show. And it's just not working for him as he's getting older. But I think if he changes his brand, his image, and his just change it, make it older content, I think he'll be fine, because he's got years to back it up. He's got the resume to back it up. Anyway, all that being said, can you imagine your biggest fan base wants to have your knife, but you can't have it because your government has banned knives. And it's because when people took away the guns, the criminal element that didn't have access to go buy guns. I'm sure there's still criminal element in UK that still have guns, and cops are trying to confiscate them one crime bust at a time. But a volunteer buyback programs or things like that, or amnesty programs. But that's what they're going to try to do here one day. And but having a knife, you can't own it because it's illegal, because they passed the law. So, but what happened was the criminal element didn't have access to guns, so they started going out and committing their crimes with knives. And knives are very dangerous, That's why you see cops, it just happened in Pleasanton, California, like a week ago. A guy came out of an apartment from a domestic violence complaint, and he came charging out the door with a knife in his hand, and he ran towards officers, and the officers shot and killed him. Because he was running at him with a knife. It's because, a person with a knife can do a lot of damage if they get you and stab you to death, kill you. You'd be surprised if you're a police officer and you're a security guard and your firearm's in your holster, and a man 10 feet from you all of a sudden decides to pull a knife out of his waistband and charge at you. He's going to get to you before you can stop his threat with your firearm. The average rule is about 21 feet. If he's 21 feet away from you, you have a better chance at stopping his threat. But the closer he is to you when that threat presents itself, the harder it is for you to stop it, because it takes so many mechanics, and that's why they teach muscle memory. Draw from your holster 500 times, build muscle memory. Know that feel without even thinking about it. It just comes muscle memory. And it's not just drawing it out of the holster, it's also bringing it to your aiming point, like aiming with your belly button, bringing it to a hip draw. That's what the hip draw is for. That's for a quick fire. That's like, most cops, when they draw, they kind of have an idea they're going to draw. They see the warning signs of the environment they're presented, and then they draw, and then they point. They're ready to rock and roll. But sometimes things happen so fast that the only time you got is to undo your triple threat holster. Hopefully you're wearing a triple threat, or at least a double retention. And then they draw, and then they shoot from the hip, and they're aiming with their belly button. And this is something they practice. All right, but you have to have muscle memory. That means to create muscle memory, you have to do something over and over and over and over a few hundred times. And then also you're breaking in your holster when you do that. That way it doesn't get hung up, and you and your holster and that firearm are you're getting the feel for how it all feels, and where it snags, and how much retention is on the retention screws in your holster, and it just improves your chances of survival if you were ever in that situation where the threat was closer to you than expected, so you don't get caught off guard. Stay tuned for this message. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com. You're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan-Shrigley. Are you worried about the war in Ukraine? Do you have fears that this could bleed into a World War III scenario? Well, let me put your mind at ease. Whatever happens, it's God's will, but you can still be prepared, and we're going to talk about that in great length. Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival. You can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. Welcome back. Thank you for listening to the little commercial break. So, we need to support organizations that protect that Second Amendment right. Okay, so there's a few of them out there, but the most famous one is the National Rifle Association, the NRA. All right, and the NRA was, they had a great leader, Charlton Heston. I don't know if you are old enough to remember him. For my younger listeners, but the ones my age or even older might remember him as playing Moses and Ben-Hur. But he was the president of the NRA for a while, the spokesperson, the figurehead, and he had obviously passed away because he got old. But we need to support the NRA. And we need to contribute to the NRA. You can become a lifetime member of the NRA. If you just want to donate temporarily. But when you donate to the NRA, you donate to their legal defense team. And that's who keeps it so you can keep and bear arms. Because they're always in litigation. They're always fighting the tyrants trying to take away your Second Amendment right. Because if the tyrants win and they do take away your right to bear arms, they're going to also take away your right to vote. They're going to pass laws saying if you ever voted for Donald Trump, you have forfeited your right to vote at all for the rest of your life or for the next 10 years or something like that. They're basically going to tell you who you're allowed to vote for, and or if it turns out you voted for Donald Trump, you're going to be cancel cultured, fired from your job, and they're going to just do whatever they can to make your life miserable because you opposed them, because they want absolute power and control. That's what cancel culture is about. All right, it's like they want to teach critical race theory in school. You need to stop and ask yourself, why? What's the benefit of teaching that in school? They didn't teach it before. Why must we teach it now? Ask that question. What do we gain as a society, by large, by teaching critical race theory in school? What are we going to teach? Are we going to teach hatred? Are we going to teach tolerance? What do we gain? All right. Critical race theory, it teaches at a young age, because they're going to go for the youngest comprehensive mind they can, and start teaching it to elementary school kids and middle school and high schoolers, the most impressionable minds in our society. All right, and they're going to teach it not only in school, but they're going to teach it in the programming that your children watch on TV or on YouTube or TikTok. All right, and they're going to make it trend so that everybody sees it. And it's going to be, brainwashing. They're going to make little white kids think that they're racist when the little white kid never did a single thing in his whole life to be racist. Maybe he goes to school. There is that kid that goes to school where he's only one or two in a black community of... he's only one or two of white kids going to a school that's predominantly black or mixed race, but he's the only white kid in school. And he has to sit in a critical race theory class with 20 other kids that are not white, all looking at him thinking that he's racist towards them, all because of his skin color. No one's racist because of their skin color. Racism is something that you're taught. And no one just is racist when they pop out the womb. They're educated to be racist. The same people that scream racism are the same people that make fun of white people in their jokes. They'll be like, referring to white people by racial slang terms. And then complain when someone else that's white refers back to them in a racial slur term. And my philosophy is drop all of it. It should be unacceptable in society to be racial at all. No white person has any right to be racist towards any non-white. And any non-white has no right to be racist towards any other race at all. We shouldn't even have the right to be racist towards our own race, which is called reverse racism. Racism is hateism, all right? So racism is hateism, but it's not in abundance. I don't see, and it could be because I'm white, but I don't see an abundance of racism anywhere. I see people of all colors, all walks of life, working together, joking and laughing together at work, and I'm always this, hey, you can be however you want at your house, in Fort living room, on camp sofa, all right? You can be however you want there, but don't be that way at work, don't be that way in public, and you probably shouldn't be that way on social media because that's considered public spectrum. We have equal opportunity rights, especially when we're working as employees or we are employers or supervisors or business owners. We have to protect people's rights so it can be a fair and equal environment for all. And and so I see that fair and equal environment for all. I don't see a lot of racism in the workplace. Maybe sometimes I might see something very rarely. It's not like I see racism all the time. But I have seen it, but at a gas station where I'll just, two people having a bad day, running across each other's path. Something happened between the two, and next thing you know, they're exchanging words and cussing and swearing at each other, and then they call each other racial slurs, and they're both guilty. And sometimes one party doesn't mention it and the other party does. Well, the party that mentions it is an idiot. All right, and you can't bleed out racism 100% from society, because that would be like trying to bleed out sin from society. Not even God can bleed out sin from society. The only way to defeat sin is through the acceptance of his son, Jesus Christ, and coming to terms with everything that involves his sacrifice, his resurrection, and his ascension to heaven, how he defeated Satan, how he defeated sin, and how he defeated death, and and the laws of liberty, which are the Torah, the Ten Commandments, and forsaking sin and repentance, so there's a lot that goes involved with that. It's not just a simple thing. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes, a desire and faith. So, you can't get to heaven by works. You have to get to heaven by faith. But faith with works is good. Works alone is not good enough. Faith alone can be good enough, but faith with works just makes you shine, kind of thing like that. But I hope you enjoyed this show. Second Amendment, support the NRA. Go be a lifetime member. If you can't afford to be a lifetime member, at least join up for a year. You can join up for a year at a time, or you can pay the extra money and join up. Go look up the NRA. Go to their website. Learn how to become a member. All right? I love all my friends. I love all my listeners. I really appreciate you guys. The show's been growing. I can tell because it's been not nice through commercial advertising. So every month the money's been getting up a little bit bigger, and I just recycle the revenue back into the show by adding better platforms and stuff like that. So to get to more people, more ears. And I try to get more consistent with recording more episodes more frequently. For example, this is the second episode I've recorded tonight for a total of about 3 hours, nearly 3 hours worth of broadcasting, but 2 different episodes. So if you listen to this one, but you didn't listen to the last one, go to Spotify, go to Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Podcaster. But you can find the show on pretty much any major podcast provider, on most major podcast providers. I think we're on like 18 providers right now. And I know we have iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and even some of the shows are put up on YouTube, but it's audio. But you can listen to it through YouTube as well. Thank you for tuning in, and I will leave you with a word from our sponsors and then close out with my theme song. Proficient Protection Agency is based out of Alameda, California. If you have security service needs, Proficient Protection Agency can provide armed and unarmed security services. They service Northern California Bay Area, and you can find them at www.ppasecurity.com. Are you a fan of survival? Do you like all things survival? Full spectrum survival, urban survival, wilderness survival, how to escape and evade, lost or stranded, doomsday prepper, all things survival. You can find on www.daniel-shrigley.com. Come visit my official survival website at www.daniel-shrigley.com and learn how to sustain, survive, and escape and achieve rescue or self-rescue. You're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan Shrigley. Are you worried about the war in Ukraine? Do you have fears that this could bleed into a World War III scenario? Well, let me put your mind at ease. Whatever happens, it's God's will, but you can still be prepared, and we're going to talk about that in great length.
Survive this.